Have you ever played an 11 out of 10 masterpiece of a game that did literally everything right in your eyes? I'm talking about a game with extremely addictive gameplay, a deep and thought-provoking story, and god-tier music that you can just listen to till the end of time without ever getting sick of it. I'm talking about titles that will forever hold a spot on your list of greatest games of all time. The type of games that are so good that you can just replay them over and over again and never be bored. Everyone has at least one game like this on their list that they've played through at least 5 times already. For me, that game was Pokemon Emerald, where I've played through it at least 10 plus times as a kid. And yes, I did delete my save file and start a fresh one every single time. Can you really blame me though? I really liked Pokemon and I had a lot of free time on my hands as a young 12-year-old whippersnapper, but as I got older and I played and completed more expansive titles, I actively started to avoid replaying them. And in doing so, it allowed me to expand my horizons and open up my world to so many other games that I would have never played before. So this is why I don't replay my favorite video games anymore, and why maybe you shouldn't either. There are a plethora of reasons why you might be compelled to start a whole nother playthrough after you rolled through the end credits once already. Whether it's because you were so enamored by the gameplay, there was more to the story after the first playthrough, or you just wanted to try out a different build. Whatever your reasoning may be, it all leads to the same result anyway. You hitting that new game button so you can experience it all over again from the beginning. But I don't do that. In fact, after I beat a game, I just put it down and never play it again because I know that the second playthrough would never be as impactful to me as the first. Whenever you start a brand new game, there's always that special novelty that the game gives off when you experience it for the first time. There's always that unknown element around every corner that compels you to continue playing. It's an exciting feeling that you get that's pretty much unique to the medium of video games, but the problem is that you can only get these feelings once. You won't ever get that same sense of amazement again when you discover Anno Londo for the first time in Dark Souls. You won't ever get that same catharsis again when you beat the Elite Four in Pokemon Fire Red. And you won't ever feel that same bittersweet sadness again when you finally say goodbye to the Phantom Thieves at the end of Persona 5. Whatever feeling you had when you played through your favorite video game for the first time just won't be there again for subsequent playthroughs because you've already seen it. You already know what's going to be waiting for you around most corners and what's going to happen at every point in the story. It's never the same experience the second time around. You can't exactly just unexplore the entire map of Breath of the Wild or forget what happens at the end of Mass Effect 3. These are one-time experiences meant for people who've never played through them before. In my initial playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, it took me almost 30 hours just to get through the first act alone because I was taking my sweet time exploring every inch of the map and talking to every NPC that I could come across. Whenever I play a brand new game, I make a great effort to experience as much content in it as I can before I roll the credits. Doing every side quest I can find and completing every optional objective there is so I can fully experience the content that the devs intended for the players. But that's all the reason why I rarely ever replay a game because I've already seen most of what it has to offer and I'm not really interested in doing everything all over again. I've already defeated all of the bosses and discovered all of the dungeons in Elden Ring, so why would I want to do that again? And don't get me wrong, I love Elden Ring. I think it's one of the best games to release in the past decade, but playing it again is the last thing that I want to do because the excitement of it just isn't there the second time around. I might be in the minority with this, but I personally don't see the appeal in starting a second playthrough after I've spent dozens of hours in the first just to have a slightly different experience. There are some exceptions to the rule, however, because some games are intended for you to play through them multiple times in order to see the quote-unquote true ending, like in Nier Automata where you have to fully play through the game as both 2B and 9S in order to unlock the real ending. Or how in roguelikes they're meant to be replayed infinitely with each run giving you little crumbs of story to keep you invested, like in Hades. But after going through the quote-unquote main experience, there's very little else that would keep me sticking around. Despite me saying all of that, I do however replay some games. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're my favorite ones just because I put a lot of time into them. I know it might sound kinda backwards, like how can you put so much time into something you don't even enjoy that much? Well, there are plenty of titles out there that I've admittedly put way too much time into, like League of Legends, which I most likely have well over 4,000 hours clocked into at this point. But this abomination disguised as a game is the last thing that I would consider as my favorite, and the reason why I keep playing is probably because I'm way too addicted to stop.
How? How did they think that was okay to even put it in the game? I'm so sick of this fucking company. They're trash! Fix the game! It sucks playing the shit! And I'm fucking addicted! So I can't quit!
It's like crack for gamers, and no matter how hard I try, I just can't quit. Games that are meant to be infinitely replayed are a bit of a different story because they don't really have a quote-unquote ending. Multiplayer titles with very little story have an infinite amount of content and concept because the replayability comes from the interactions with other players. Stuff like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Street Fighter, or whatever live service games are all built for you to play forever and put hundreds if not thousands of hours into, even though you're basically playing on the same map with the same characters and the same items every single time. But it's slightly different every time because there's just enough variance within these games that you'll never have a truly identical session from the last. In PvP games like these, the interactions you have with the other people is your content because no two people ever really play exactly the same. Their playstyle might be a bit different or they might run a different build. The human randomness is more than enough variety to keep players permanently coming back to the game over and over again, and that's the secret sauce that makes these kinds of games so addicting. It's that you can play them forever and never be bored of them. But unfortunately for me, I'm the type of gamer that prefers to have some sort of story or narrative to really sink my teeth into. Yeah, I can put thousands of hours into many of these great multiplayer games like Warframe or Path of Exile, but they just don't really have enough of that narrative impact like Final Fantasy or Red Dead Redemption to really elevate them to my favorites. Now, there is the argument of doing challenge runs after the first playthrough. For example, Nuzlocke in Pokemon games or no-hit runs in Souls games, or just speedruns in general. I'll admit that I've never really been the challenge run type of guy myself. Placing arbitrary rules on myself because I'm a masochist doesn't really seem that appealing to me because it requires a lot of time and mental fortitude to be able to persevere through the many failure attempts, and I just don't have the patience to do that. But I do like watching other people who are way better than me play through them though. So instead of doing challenge runs, I would much rather look for completely brand new experiences in other games I've never played before. I was able to discover some of my most favorite games of all time because I opened up my horizons and played games I would have never considered playing before. For example, The Witcher 3 is my favorite game of all time. I absolutely love everything about it. The story, the gameplay, the world, the characters. To me, this game is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. I took my sweet time exploring the regions of White Orchard, Novigrad, and Skellige, doing every side quest and most of the other side activities that I could find. My initial playthrough for the base game clocked in at over 100 hours of playtime and 30 more for the DLCs. I loved every moment of playing The Witcher 3, but after I beat it, I put it down and haven't touched it since 2016. And instead of clicking that New Game Plus button, I used the time to play other great games out there like Divinity Original Sin 1 when Larian was still a budding studio. Another example of me not replaying great games is with Devil May Cry 5, even though I loved it the whole way through, but it's a game that's meant to be replayed over and over again at higher difficulties, meaning that the campaign itself is relatively short. That's why I only have 10 hours on this game, even though I liked pretty much everything about it. I know, sue me. But I used that time to play Persona 5 Strikers and Elden Ring instead, so I think that's a good trade-off. The point is that there are literally hundreds of thousands of amazing games out there that you've never played before, both old and new. You could be playing your next favorite game right now after your previous one, who knows? You'll never find out unless you expand your horizons. But we all know that the worst part about playing your favorite video game is when they finally come to an end. Unfortunately, every story has its finale, and that's no different for games. When you spend 50, 60, or even 100 plus hours into a title, it starts to fill a special place in your heart. One that can never really be replaced by anything else, whether it be good or bad. But your first experience will always be the most authentic one because you can't ever get that again after you roll credits. Sometimes the game will be so good that you'll wish that you can wipe it from your memory just so you could experience it for the first time again. Well, what if I told you that you can sort of have that first time experience again? Obviously, you can't rewind time or have the men in black come to your house and wipe your memory, but you can have the second best thing to that, which is to not play it for years and years, so that if you do one day decide to come back to the game, it'll almost be like your first time playing the game because you'll pretty much forget most of the details about it. Have you ever played a game so much to the point where you got really good at it, then due to some unfortunate circumstances you had to quit playing for a few years, and when you return to it after a long stretch of inactivity, you've lost almost all your skill, making tasks that you were once able to easily do really difficult endeavors now? But you still retain some of that knowledge of what high skill looks like, which allows you to quickly relearn how to play the game at that level again. This is a similar concept that kinda applies to single player titles as well, because after years of not playing them, you forget all of the minute story details, gameplay mechanics, and environmental map design. Now of course you'll still remember the important parts of the game like major story beats, but you won't really remember all the minor details surrounding them. Like for example, it's been 8 years since I've last beaten The Witcher 3, and I listened to every side quest and talked to every NPC possible in order to fully immerse myself into this game. But after not playing this game for so long, I've forgotten what exploring this world was like and how all the little interactions in each of the conversations play out within one another. I don't remember all of the side quests and all of the ways that they end. I don't remember what the environments look like exactly, and I don't remember all of the characters that I interacted with. If I were to go back and play The Witcher 3 today, it'll essentially be like I'm playing it for the first time again. Of course, I still know all the plot twists and how it all ends, but everything else has completely left my memory, so I can re-experience what I felt playing this game 8 years ago, and that's why I rarely replay my favorite video games. But that's just me. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.